everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Rookies podcast. I am your host, Olivia Sala, and joining me are, of course, my two co-hosts, Tristan Tata and Anne Lewicki. On today's episode, we will be discussing the use of social media as a marketing tool for businesses to engage with potential fans, but also the effects that social media can have on consumer behaviors when it comes to making decisions. I'm going to start by introducing our guests for today's episode. We have veteran and creative services producer Brooklyn Fell, and our rookie and social media and marketing executive. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. So our social media and marketing executive, Catherine Morose from the Brampton Beast Hockey Club. Both of these ladies are very familiar with the social media world, and Anne and Tristan, I know, have quite a bit of experience in this field as well. So let's just jump right into it here. I wanted to start off by asking you guys what your favorite apps are right now. If you could give me a top 3, which ones would you choose?
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I think just at the beginning of March when everything kind of went down and everything kind of changed, TikTok was a big one for me. I've been on that one so much and it's just taken up so much of my time. I think that one it's just an easy app. Like it's I don't know, you just really scroll through videos and you can kind of get caught watching for too long. But I think that one's my third favorite. My second one's probably Snapchat, just because I like to talk to my friends that way. It's kind of easy and I like watching like what other people are doing through stories and stuff. But my favorite is probably Instagram. I found throughout the pandemic it's been a really good source just for kind of information about what's going on in the world, and kind of there's been a lot of trends going on and like different things happening. Plus it's just easy. I like it better than Twitter. It's just more pictures and more creativity. And just again, like I like seeing what people are doing if it's different or something that I've never seen before. It's really interesting to me. So those are my top 3.
Mine's really similar, to be honest with you. My number one right now, like Catherine said, is TikTok. Honestly, when quarantine started, I was like, oh, I don't know about TikTok. Like, it's for the kids. It's not for me. I'm too old for it now. But ever since I downloaded TikTok, like the amount of times I catch myself, I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been on here for 2 hours. It's crazy. That would probably be my number one. My number 2 is, for me, I really like Twitter because I like things like instantaneously. I like knowing like the first like set of news, like when they had like the free agency in the NHL, like I like, following it and getting like the first thing, like, oh, like this guy moved here, this guy moved here. I enjoy getting that like instantaneously. And then third for me probably would be a tie between like Snapchat and Instagram, because like Catherine, that's pretty much how I communicate is through Snapchat. And then Instagram, I love Instagram as well. Like the pictures and just seeing things visually, like especially like with what I do, visual things, like I get a lot of inspiration from Instagram, and I just kind of get a lot of my information from Instagram as well.
Yeah, similar to both of them, like Instagram's probably my biggest. I get basically all of my news, and it's like I just check it periodically just for baseball throughout the day. So Instagram is my biggest. TikTok also is up there. Like I made a TikTok every day at the start of quarantine and said I would do it all the way through. Stopped that a little whiles in because that would be, I don't know how many hundreds of TikTok videos by this point. And I'm a little different on my third. I'm a big Pinterest person. Just because like I can end up scrolling on Pinterest for absolute hours and like looking at a Tudor style house with a specific bathroom, and then it's just like a deep dark hole, and I've spent 4 hours on like Pinterest at 3 a.m. and it's just like it's a black hole for me, but I love it so much because it's not so much what other, like it's stuff I can actually do and like create myself. So that's like I like that part of Pinterest definitely.
I would say like similar to you guys, Snapchat and Instagram for sure, and then I'd say number 3 would maybe be like LinkedIn. Which like honestly I was like one of the last people to get a LinkedIn. Like I only got mine like a year ago, but like ever since I find myself like checking it like once a day or like once every other day for sure. So
why is TikTok so popular? What is it about that app that is just so appealing to people?
I don't know. I guess I'll start then. TikTok for me started off as like my dirty little secret. I was so embarrassed that I was on TikTok because I thought like, oh my gosh, like this is for kids. Like this is just like stupid dancing and dance moves. And then I quickly realized, like after a couple friends were like, you know what, download it. Like there's some really funny videos on it. It reminded me a lot of Vine. And Vine was huge for me in high school. I loved watching Vines. Like I was obsessed with them. And I think for me, it's just like the short, digestible content that like I can watch, 100 different TikToks within like, an hour or so. And I just like the repeating of them. Like I just like the format of it. It's really easy. You can just get lost on it. Like you'll have things based on your algorithm, like your For You page. Honestly, sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, it's reading my mind. There's things that like I didn't even know that I needed to hear or needed to see. I'm like, wow, like that's interesting. And I feel like I haven't gotten that really on any other platform where it's so specific. And maybe that's like some kind of like data breach or something like that. Maybe they're like really looking into my phone that they know all this stuff. But I think for me, the big thing is it's taken my interest and it's like put it in quite like a small digestible like 6-second video or like up to a minute, and then I can just scroll through it for hours, and that's why I just find it kind of addictive.
Yeah, I can go too. Kind of just going off like exactly what Brooke said. Like in the beginning of quarantine, I didn't want to download it. Like I didn't want to be one of those people when it's starting to get big. Like I didn't want to hop on the trend that fast, but I eventually downloaded it, and I just like that was the only thing I was doing in quarantine. But I also find like although there's like the dancing videos and stuff, I actually find that there's a lot of like educational videos that like show you stuff that maybe you've never even learned before. Like there's so many random like little things that like I didn't know that like TikTok has taught me. But yeah, I think just also what Brooke said, like it reminds me of Vine, and I used to love Vine just because it's just short videos and like it's quick and it's easy, and it's just like a chance for people to be creative and like try not to be a part of those trends, which I find like there's always different trends like every single day. So like it's kind of cool how people can create those and they can blow up to be like so big.
For me, yeah, I just felt like I already feel like I waste so much time on social media that like I couldn't like add another one or like add more time to what I already spent.
That's almost why I like TikTok, though. I feel like it's the least pressure social media. Like when I'm on Instagram, I feel like, oh, a friend posted a picture, like, gotta like it. I have to post content. I have to keep up with my stories. I feel like I have to be engaged on my Twitter. Like I have to post on my other social media. Unlike TikTok, like I feel no obligation to have anything on my profile. I don't see any of my friends on it. It's kind of like I detox from all of my other social media because every time I go on Instagram, I know who I'm going to see. But TikTok, I'm seeing someone from the other side of the world in Australia, and I feel like it's so much less pressure. You don't really have to do anything. You can scroll through it. Like no one really knows what you're doing on it. And that's why I kind of like TikTok for that, because it is so like different than all the other forums, and that you don't really have the same, unless you're like an Addison Rae and you have millions of followers. Like the pressure on TikTok, I think for the average Joe is a lot less than it is on other social media.
That's an interesting way of looking at it. Like I would never have thought of it that way. But what sorts of videos are you guys watching? Like what attracts you the most in terms of like your suggested videos and things like that? What are you watching mostly?
I find like for myself, I watch things like I get kind of down like a rabbit hole for like business TikTok. Like I love like looking into like how to start your own business, and like I'm sure Olivia, you would love some of these videos too. There's like creative TikTok where like they're kind of going through and they're creating things like stickers and stationery, and it's kind of crazy. It's like deep diving into my brain of like things I'm interested in, and like showing different ways of how to do like something that I'm looking into. Like they have like Illustrator TikTok, which I have been like all over. I don't even like Illustrator as a platform. Like I like Photoshop way better. But I've been learning so much from that. There's been so many things about like budgeting and like financial planning that like I would have never known that in high school. And like I think it's such a cool opportunity to have that on TikTok as well, because you've got high school age kids that are learning things that I never knew in high school, and they're going to be way better off in adulting than I am because I was completely unaware of this stuff. So I think that stuff's kind of cool. And then I get the random like meme videos that are, they're funny and they just make me laugh, but that's pretty much it.
I think for me, like I only like I set it up kind of on my profile so that my likes are stuff that I can go back to, or like stuff that I find useful. So a lot of that stuff for me is just like traveling videos of like places that I want to go that I've seen on TikTok, or even just like kind of fashion videos or different product videos, and different places I can find like dupes and stuff, or just as like inspo for fashion. And then I just have like the memes and stuff too. And then I think another big one for me is just kind of like cooking stuff. Like cooking TikTok is huge, and honestly, it's just they make it look so much easier than what it is. And just being a student, I find those kind of helpful. So
I'm the same as Brooke with like I go down the deep dark hole of like learning how to use a Cricut and Procreate and wanting to make my own. Like I'm asked for an iPad for
I bought
Christmas, so I could start
Procreate.
making my own. Yeah, same. I don't even have an iPad yet, and I've already downloaded it just so that I can have it when I get it, because I want to start making stickers. I want to do it all myself. I want to get more into the graphics, and my entire saved list of TikToks is Photoshop, Illustrator, different stuff I can use on Procreate, just because I think it's so cool, and they actually slow it down and go step by step. And then I'm just all dog TikTok, and there's like Newfies and Great Danes. There's no in between for me. It's either giant dogs just like in Halloween costumes, or like crafts. There's no in between. I don't have funny videos. I have like stationery or dogs.
No, that's really cool. I honestly did not expect that that's what you could do on TikTok. I'm just familiar again with the compilation videos that come up on my YouTube feed, and a lot of them are the like challenging like the challenge ones where it's like, oh, you know, like the kiss your best friend challenge, and like I don't know what it is, but they come up on my feed all the time, and I'm like, so that's what I think TikTok is. So it's interesting to hear from you guys that there are so many different avenues within TikTok that, you know, really cater to your interests. What do you guys think is the most popular app in Canada right now? I looked this up, so and I was pretty surprised.
Instagram and Snapchat for sure. One of those two for sure.
Okay.
Number one.
I also
So
think there's a lot of famous Canadians on TikTok. Like Canadians get famous on TikTok easier than like other nationalities, which I've heard, which I find kind of crazy. But other than that, I just think like maybe Twitter. I'm thinking of like age range. How many people use Twitter? I don't know.
Okay, so Tristan, you say number one is Instagram. Brooke, you're saying Twitter.
I'm gonna add on and say LinkedIn too, just because I feel like nobody else really has like the chance to network in person. So a lot of people are probably on LinkedIn right now, trying to connect with people.
So I
That's
think
a good point.
Facebook's got to be there too. Like we have an entire generation of baby boomers that still only really use Facebook, and they make up so much of the population that it's like my parents don't even know what TikTok is. So I think
I honestly think Facebook. I think Facebook has got to be number 2 or 3 for sure. Because so many of my like parents and like I don't know, I come from a family with like 8 aunts, and like that's the only thing they use is Facebook. So like honestly, I think we're like biased and saying like I wouldn't be surprised if Facebook was number 1 too. Like I don't know.
Okay, so I looked this up because I was actually like interested to see what it actually was. So this is from a website called CanadiansInternet.com, and it was a post from August 2020, so this year. And it was a report of social media use in Canada. The top 5 apps used in Canada, number 1 is Facebook. Number 2 are messaging apps, so like WhatsApp, Messenger, that sort of thing. 3 is YouTube. 4 is Instagram. And then 5 is LinkedIn. So Snapchat ended up being number 8 on this list. And then Twitter was number 6. So it was almost there in the top 5. But I was kind of like shocked, to be honest, when I saw that. I was just like, really? That those are the 5 top apps in Canada? So when you hear that, like, what are your thoughts on that?
I didn't think
Are you surprised?
would be considered like a social media app, but I guess it is. Like if you think about it, like WhatsApp definitely is, and you can communicate to like anyone across the world on it. So it's a good point.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at all that like a messaging app. Because think about it, like we may use like text, but like some people actually use like those as their primary way. So like obviously like messages is my number 1 app or whatever that I use. But like if someone like uses like WhatsApp primarily, then like obviously it's gonna be up there. So I don't know. I'm not, like I said, like once I started to think about it, like then I was like, okay, yeah, Facebook's got to be like up there. Like it's got to be like at least 2. So yeah, I wasn't surprised like once I started actually thinking about it. But I think it's funny, like we definitely have a bias based on like what we use and like what our generation uses versus like some of the old, like LinkedIn, for example. I probably wouldn't have guessed that it'd be in the top 5, but like if you like really think about it, like the majority of people are like older than us, then like it's yeah.
I'm honestly surprised that Twitter wasn't in the top 5, just because, at least for me, like more so in the beginning when I was at school and I didn't really have cable, like that was kind of my big like news resource, some of the things that were going on in the world. So, and I still keep up with it to this day. Like it's kind of like my main resource for news and like what's like currently happening. So
Yeah, I would say I was like really surprised by it as well, because when I think of social media, I think of Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Like those would be the big 4 for me that I automatically think of. And I guess you also have to think of like how many users are on those platforms as well. Like Facebook has billions of users, Instagram is in the millions. Like there's so many factors behind why those are in the top 5. But the one thing that surprised me, I honestly thought that TikTok, because it's so popular, that it would have been in the top 5, and it's number 10 on this list.
Wow.
Yeah, and then the only one that's below it is Tumblr, which was 11. So on the list of 11 apps, TikTok was number 10, which I thought was really interesting, because it seems to be it's the popular app nowadays. Everyone is talking about TikTok. Everyone's on TikTok. So I thought that was really interesting. So just a little bit of a fun fact there for you. So when it comes to the Beast, you guys, Brooke and Catherine, you're working the social media side of things. What app have you found to be the most useful and the most successful when it comes to promoting the Beast?
Good question. I'd say, like, in my personal opinion, it's kind of a toss-up between Instagram and Twitter. I know, like, for us, like, we found that if you're like posting like engaging content, our Twitter followers are really good at like getting back, replying, liking, retweeting, all that stuff. And we get really good engagement on Twitter specifically. And then for Instagram, we find that like it's easier for us to like visualize like our product on Instagram, obviously, because it's more of like a visual platform. But I think like for us, in regards to like sponsored videos and like stuff like kind of like getting more conversion between like social media and like actual sales, I feel like our sponsored posts on Instagram and Facebook do really well. But when it comes to engagement, I'd say Twitter. So it's kind of a toss-up. It's depending on like what you think like defines success. So it's kind of a toss-up between those 3, I'd say.
yeah, I only really have access to like the Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And for me, I've noticed just kind of looking at the insights and stuff for Instagram. Obviously, like there's more posts that do, or there's some posts that do better than the others. But I think like Instagram and Twitter are probably the best. We're gonna try to do more like interactive stuff, like using stories and stuff on Instagram. So I don't really know how that's gone before in the past, but hopefully we can see how that kind of goes and how well fans interact with that. But yeah, just like Brooke said, I feel like we posted like a Thanksgiving post on Twitter and Instagram, and I think it got more interaction on Twitter. So yeah, kind of a lot of what Brooke said, but yeah.
So what sorts of things do you do to engage your fans on the different social media platforms? Are you sending out like graphics, video content? What has been the most, I guess, successful in your time at the Beast and in promoting the Beast on those platforms?
I'd say it's kind of like a toss-up of a couple different things. I find for us specifically, like we pride ourselves in being like fan focused and all about the user and fan experience. So we pride ourselves on, not just being a hockey game, but like a whole fan experience. And I find that our best posts on like social media, especially Instagram and Twitter, is something that engages the fans or shows the fans having fun. So like if it's like, posting from game day, fan interaction on game day, I find that those get a lot of like engagement numbers for that. And then another thing I find that we get a lot of, which is kind of weird, is like our news. I find like when we're posting on Twitter about a signing or, you know, a retirement, unfortunately, like with Hank retiring and stuff like that, those kind of things got a lot of traction. And I think it's because it's coming from us first. And that's, you know, really good, like credit to Anthony and his press releases, because people come to us to see like the Beast news, you know, like it's not so much like the Leafs where they've got like Elliot Friedman tweeting about it before it's actually happening. Like we have the luxury of being able to put out a press release and being the first person to report on that. So that's really something that's cool. And then another thing that I find gets a lot of engagement is like a lot of like the user generated content that we have tried to do. And like Catherine can definitely talk about like her content calendar. She's been killing it with the content calendar and just thinking of different ideas about like how to actually get our fans to engage with our content.
Yeah, so I guess I created a content calendar for October, and I just finished November's and I'm going to start working on December soon. But I've tried to kind of do stuff that I personally haven't seen the Beast do yet. So just kind of interacting more, I guess mine's more Instagram based, but also kind of trying to bring that onto other social media platforms. But I've wanted to try like a lot of Instagram stories, like kind of doing like the answer this question or like the poll options or the quiz options, just to kind of see like how fans would interact with that, if they would be into that kind of thing or if not. And also kind of focusing on user generated content. So we haven't made any posts yet, but kind of asking fans to share their experiences with us, or like share like pictures of them and their merch, just to kind of like potentially have that as an option to post, but kind of make it more personable to like people on the outside. And then yeah.
No, that sounds great. I think especially with being in social media, it's important to have a schedule and know exactly what you're going to post, when you're going to post it, what it's going to be. I know for me, the way I kind of do it at Cosmos is I just have a day every week that, so like Tuesdays are case studies days, and then Wednesdays like a seminar day. Thursdays is podcast, Fridays blog post. I just kind of keep it to that consistency, and so that allows me to prepare for the next week every time. So that's great. That I think definitely creating a content calendar is helpful for sure when doing social media. So good on you for doing that. So my next question here is social media an effective way to market a brand? Why or why not? And then what are your thoughts on traditional forms of media, such as newspapers, billboards, magazines, things like that? Do you think that those are still effective ways to market a brand?
I'd say right now in the digital age, I find personally social media most effective, especially like being very virtual right now and throughout the whole COVID situation. A lot of things have moved online because not a lot of people are outside their houses as much. Not a lot of people are, you know, walking around and seeing just traditional marketing. I think for me, one thing that I do really like about traditional marketing over, you know, something digital is I find that the digital space is very competitive. You're always competing for those views, you're always competing for that top spot, whether it's, you know, top spot on Google or, you know, to be the pre-roll ad on a YouTube video. Like you're always competing for those specific things. And I feel like traditional media is very tangible and you can see it and you can feel it. And like, let's say, for example, I'm driving down Kennedy Road and I see a giant billboard that says the Beast, or we drive by the CAA Center and you see the giant Beast sign. I find that that's like really effective because one, you become kind of like a staple part of the community, and two, you're always being seen, and it's something that like no one else can, unless someone throws over an ad over top of it, you're not really competing for that spot. So that's something that I really like respect out of traditional marketing. But like overall, I find social media marketing, it's the most easy to kind of see. It's the easiest to create. And I find that it's the easiest to like see the analytics and like how well it's doing as well. Cause it's kind of hard to track how many people drive by the CAA Center and see our giant Beast sign, or, you know, see that, you know, random truck that we have in front of our office that's like a traditional media type thing?
I think for me, I think social media, like Brooke was talking about, we've had to kind of like we've been a part of a lot of sponsorship meetings where we've had to kind of recreate some like deals with companies that where they want to kind of move everything over to social media or online. So I think it's effective in that way, especially in this time. Like it's really like kind of the only option if we're not allowed, not the only option, but it's kind of more of like a reasonable option, just because we're not able to go into the rink. But I think social media can also be effective in just reaching everybody. I mean, even if they're not on social media, I think like they can see it through a lot of different platforms or a lot of different like news sources even. But with traditional media, I think it's just kind of going also touching on the people who may not be a part of social media or they're kind of more old school, like they prefer newspapers and stuff. I think it's helpful with reaching kind of everybody. And also, like Brooke said, it's kind of like a tangible thing. And like, I think traditional ways like that are still good. Like people still keep newspapers of like very important times in history. So I think it's really cool in that way. But yeah, I think just in this day and age, I think, and especially with everything going on right now, I think social media is like one of the most effective ways to help market and help like organizations kind of share and expose themselves with like a lot of different people. So.
And how about you, Tristan and Anne? What are your thoughts on traditional media versus social media?
Yeah, just to add on to that, like working on the sponsorship side of things when there's just so much uncertainty and you're trying to, find potential sponsors, I think it's really important to outline some of the benefits when it comes to the digital marketing stuff, even if they are used to sort of like the traditional or the in-person things that you really have to say, like, here's like how many followers we have, here's how many engagements we have, because that might be all we can do if there's no season next year. And so just outlining those benefits. And the one thing that I think is really good about social media too is that like aside from when you're doing those paid ads, like you get to just post content for free that just gets like posted out there for everyone to see. So it's like a cheap in that way. And then also like what Catherine was saying when she's trying to integrate the user generated content, like that's just stuff that like you don't even have to really spend time at all on. You're just asking, the fans to make your own content for you. And that's, I think, such a great advantage of social media is that, it doesn't cost a lot or take a lot of time to, post something for everyone to see. So I think that's another advantage that would have over traditional media as well.
I still think there is still an advantage to traditional media. I think this is going to be one of the last generations where it is such a big thing. We're sort of the first generation that grew up with a phone in our hand at the age of like 7, and every generation after that, it's so normal for them. So I think as the current, like the older generation now starts to fade away, social media is going to become that much more important. But at the same time, I think when we're fully in like a digital age, that's going to make traditional marketing that much more sort of impactful, because if you only ever see marketing on your phone and then all of a sudden you're driving down the Gardner and you see a billboard, it has that sort of pop. And I think traditional marketing, traditional marketing kind of helps for bigger brands that are established. For example, like I know if I'm driving past Rogers Center, I look at that billboard outside of Rogers Center to see what's playing every time, versus if I drive past a bus pass and it's some small brand, I don't really resonate with that as much. So I think traditional marketing now is still really big for big brands, and it is still for enough for the older generation that isn't on social media. They still rely on that, and a lot of them are in that space where they don't care about social media at all. So I think for this generation, it's still important to have that traditional media, and then it can almost become that much more leveraged when it completely flips and we're talking about is social media too much and do we need more traditional. I think it's going to change in another 100 years. This conversation will be completely switched and it will be like, well, no, we want more traditional marketing. We never see it. So I think it's just going to be one of those like weird waves that right now we're like, no, it's all social media. But when our kids are coming up, they're gonna be like, no, like screens hurt our eyes too much. Like, let's have traditional media. And it's gonna switch like as things go.
No, yeah, I totally agree with that. Especially like driving down the Gardner and stuff. Like I'm always the one that just like looks at everything, all like the ads. Especially like, have you seen those like flower gardens that are full of like ads like off the Gardner? Like I love those. Like I don't know, I think they're just super cool. Just things like that. Like I don't think I mean, any sort of traditional marketing, like even on the buses or like at a bus stop, like I don't think any of that's going to go away. And I think it'll still be relevant, like even in the future. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely something I look at too.
Yeah, I was gonna say pretty much the same thing. Like for me, I commute. Like when we were going into office and I was going places, I took the bus everywhere. And so I found that I was the only person on the bus that wasn't looking down at their phone and on their social media. I was more looking out the window and trying to look at my surroundings and see what was there. And so even just standing at the bus stops, like I would sit there and I would read the ad that was in the bus shelter instead of just looking down at my phone, because I find that social media, while it's a good thing, can also be a bad thing. So that kind of leads into my question here is, how do you think social media dictates consumer behaviors in a negative way?
Interesting. I watched that documentary, The Social Dilemma, and that thing completely changed my view on everything. Even working in social media, I didn't realize how much of a consumer that I am to this massive beast where they know every little thing. They know what you're doing, how long you're spending on this stuff, what you're interested in. And then on top of it all, you've got like Facebook, who's able to, you've got your Google, like your Google Home is always listening to you and stuff like that, right? So I think in a perfect world, social media makes sense, right? It makes sense. It's where you go to connect with other people, and that kind of encompasses connecting with smaller businesses or connecting with other businesses. But I think in a negative sense, it can be to the point where it kind of takes advantage of what you're looking at, and it'll take things that you're interested in and kind of skew that in order to, actually make money and stuff like that. I think another thing too that's kind of negative about the whole social media aspect is there's a lot of influencers out there. Don't get me wrong, there are some very, very good influencers out there, but there are some influencers that are out there that are committing themselves into buying a product and saying that this product's fantastic, when in retrospect, it's not actually that great. And they know that their followers are going to be more inclined to buy this product because they're saying that it's great, even though it's not necessarily great. So it kind of puts this like mask over these products, and you can kind of hype up anything you want and say, oh, this is fantastic on social media. But when you have traditional marketing, like we were talking about before, it's tangible, it's in front of you. You can see if it works. You can't see that necessarily on social media. So I think that's kind of a negative aspect.
Yeah, it's like for me, it's going with the influencer thing. Social media, like I absolutely love it. I don't think I've gone a day in the past 3 years without going on Instagram. Even when I don't have service at my cottage, I'm standing at the end of my dock trying to get service, because like I think it's so embedded into so much of us. But I think that's where some of the negativity comes with influencers. And I do follow a lot of influencers. I think it's great, like you learn stuff from them, but I also think it kind of sets an unrealistic standard. That's what Instagram is. It's like, I by no means am an influencer. I have my content up until Christmas planned of when I'm posting, what I'm doing, like the activities I'm going to do to get an Instagram picture. And it's kind of like, they're like, here's what I do. Like, I'm effortlessly looking like this when I go like work out my new like workout clothing. And realistically, I'm like, I look like a tomato when I work out. No way ever could I post that content on Instagram. But it's like, nope, let me take a picture in these leggings now before I work out. And I think it kind of sets the standard that like, if an influencer does it, you should do it, and you should curate your life like that too. And I think we're getting to the point where it's, especially like the younger girls coming up in like the high school age, so much of it is curated to try and be an influencer. And the fact that kids are putting, like, you see it, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? A YouTuber, an influencer, and seeing how that's like completely steering into like what people are planning at their lives. And that kind of scares me, because the fact that TikTok was going to get banned, what's stopping, like, and it's not, but like if Instagram got banned today, all of those jobs would be gone. And I think it's just so scary that so many people are relying on social media and brand deals. Well, I think it can be really good. I think the reliance on it and how people are crafting their lives to it is kind of just, it's a little scary at times. And like after watching that documentary, I did the same thing. I want to throw my phone out a window and just delete everything. But at the same time, I'm there going, can't do it. Like I hit the X on Instagram, like, no, come back. And it's like part of me. And that's a little bit scary.
Yeah, I think like just to add on to that too, I think like Instagram kind of just like shows like everyone's like best life or like their like different social lives and stuff. So like I think everyone like when you see that, you kind of are like inclined that like you have to like post or like you have to like do all these like things that maybe you wouldn't have done like otherwise and like go out all the time or like go out to a place like a restaurant just to get like the picture. Like you're not actually going to that restaurant to like eat the good food, you're going to the restaurant just because there's a good spot to like take a picture, like they have like a menu item that like looks good. So yeah, it's super interesting like that way how it's just kind of, you know, has so much influence on like our behaviors as well. um and yeah, like I mean, it's same thing too, like in this day and age where like you're not supposed to be going out. And so like when you do go out or you do see people, then you're like worried that you're gonna get like judged when you like post something on online, right? So it's like it's super interesting like how much like it actually has influence on our behaviors and like influence on like what we normally post otherwise and like how you can't post this or can post that or whatever. So yeah, definitely, it definitely has way more influence than it should, I think.
Yeah, for sure. One thing
Yeah.
that I noticed that like was just like last thing on the social dilemma that like totally blew my mind was just like the little physical things, like the little physical triggers of like reward. Like there was this one thing where they said like when you're scrolling to refresh, they mimic that to be like slot machines in Vegas. And you get the thing and you roll it, you get the reward, and like it's like Pavlov's dog. Like you're getting conditioned into keep refreshing, keep refreshing. It's like we've become addicted to it. It's crazy.
I'm scared to watch this movie now.
Like a
Like I
horror
feel like
film.
it's gonna change everything.
It's really good. Like it really makes you think about how much time you spend on social media and who, you know, you're watching and, you know, people that are watching you. Like it's just like this whole thing. And while social media is good, yes, you know, you get a lot of ideas, you get to follow these different influencers that you like, you get your news. There's a lot of fake news as well, which they talk about in that documentary too. So it was a definitely like an eye opener, something that I never really thought about. But would definitely recommend The Social Dilemma. If you haven't seen it, go and watch it. It will change your perspective on things for sure, and hopefully make you not want to be on social media all the time. My last couple of questions here for Brooke and Catherine. In your opinion, what can companies do to stand out on social media?
Good question. I think for kind of similar to what we were just talking about, be real. I think that like in recent times, I don't know if this has kind of been like accelerated based on COVID, but a lot of people have been spending a lot of time on social media. And I'm finding that like the curtain's being pulled, you know? There's the Social Dilemma like documentary that came out, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, I should probably like get off my social media. I feel like the curtain's kind of been pulled where people are understanding like people want your money and people want this. So I think just being genuine about your product. If you think you have a good product that you think that it's going to be an experience that they can build memories, like for us, example, like for us with the beast, that's our thing. We always say like we're in the business of building memories, and you know, we want to show you the true meaning behind going to a Beast game, whether it's bringing your son to his first Beast game, or you're new to Canada and you've never been to a hockey game before and it's too expensive to go to a Leaf game, so you go to a Beast game. So I think like just little things like that, just be real and show like the genuine experience that you have. I think that's the best way to go about on social media.
Yeah, like you said, Brooke, about being real. It's all like, especially in this day and age, I think that's something that's so important, and just kind of truly representing like your brand or organization. Like I think that's something that like those organizations have to keep in mind. But I think also creating like fan focused like content, and like trying to figure out like how to market or how to promote things that can fit and like suit to everybody, and like no matter like who you are, it can be like beneficial or something that's interesting to you. I think that's important. And yeah.
Awesome. And so what for this discussion for you. What have you liked the most about your internship with the Beast and being in a social media and marketing role? What has been your favorite part?
I think for me, like just like finishing up school now, like I'm almost done. I had an internship last year, but it was more like kind of data analytics related. I think I've learned that I really like being on like the creative side of stuff and like being able to kind of express myself and kind of come up with unique ideas that could benefit like the Beast or Cosmos or whoever. I like kind of being creative and trying things that haven't really been done before, especially with social media. And I think doing that on a platform that's a lot bigger than just my personal social media and that can influence other people, I think is something that's super cool. I liked so far just being able to create content calendars, like as I mentioned before, like being able to be creative with it and try different things. And I also like it's interesting to see how that kind of plays out. Obviously, I've never been a part of like a social media job before, so something new to me. But yeah, I think like seeing the behind the scenes of how that kind of runs is something that I've liked a lot so far. So
Great. And so one of my last questions here, how many times a day or week should a brand or organization be posting on social media?
Good question. I think it depends on your brand and it depends on your like tone and voice, I guess is like what everyone likes to talk about, like their brand tone and voice for their company. I think it all depends on what kind of content you're posting. Something that like we've kind of been instilled into us with like our marketing team is the jab, jab, hook. So it's 2 pieces of engagement content, then a sales piece of content. So it's like engaging them, entertaining them, and then, you know, something that's more like revenue generating, essentially like a ticket post or season ticket holder member post, something like that. I think that's all dependent on like kind of social climate too. For example, like when there are things going on like Twitter and stuff like that, there's a time and a place for everything, and it's kind of fluid. Like, for example, when, you know, everything was going crazy in the States when they had the protest, we knew that it wasn't the right time to be posting sales posts. That's not what it's meant for. Social media is fluid. You're not supposed to be posting something when something bigger is going on. And then there's a time and place for everything. I think it's all kind of contingent on what you're trying to execute with your brand. Like for us right now, our posting is obviously slower because we're not in season, but in season we're posting like 3-4 times a day. Like it's kind of crazy. We did like a meeting, like our Vegas meetings, and the NHL was speaking to us, their social media advisor, and was saying that they're posting like between 10 to 30 times per day. And for their market, that makes sense. They've got millions and millions of people watching their content. They need to be, you know, top of their game all the time. But for someone like us with a smaller brand and a smaller team, I feel like it's important to create more meaningful content because we do have followers that engage with our stuff. And we've got season ticket holders that have been around the Beast longer than any of us have been. They're like more OG than, you know, than me. But I feel like there's a time and place for everything. And it's kind of hard to narrow down like an amount of times. But yeah, that's just my thoughts.
For sure. I agree with everything you guys have said there. I think also too for us at Cosmos, as I said, I post 4 days a week, mostly on LinkedIn because that's where a majority of our following is. But I've also realized that a lot of the content that I post on LinkedIn doesn't make sense for other platforms such as Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, that sort of thing. So I think it's also picking and choosing which platforms will work for specific content as well. Would you guys agree with that?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing that I've definitely had to learn over the years is just because we make one campaign for something or one piece of content doesn't mean that it's transferable to all platforms. And we've noticed that even through like, you know, posting something on Twitter and Facebook doesn't mean that it's going to do as well on Facebook that it will on Twitter or vice versa. So it's definitely something we've had to learn.
Yeah. And even like with the content calendar, like some of the stuff that I made, like for example, like the Instagram stories, like I want to do like a quiz thing. Like obviously you can't do that on other platforms. It's an Instagram thing. So
Awesome. Yeah. So I think maybe Anne, if you have any questions that you wanted to ask Brooke or Catherine, you can do that now.
Yeah, I actually had one that I thought was just sort of a fun one, that if you could only have one social media form for your own personal use for the rest of your life, which one would you pick?
I think Instagram maybe, just because again I just like the creative part of it. I like how it's like pictures and like people can express themselves through that. I also think it's a way to kind of like connect with people, um like maybe you don't know, or follow like inspiration, because a lot of the stuff that I get, like it's a lot of mental health stuff and a lot of like daily quotes and stuff which I like. So I think it would probably be Instagram just for those reasons. It's hard.
No, I agree completely. I was gonna say Snapchat, but then I thought about it, I'm like, no. But Instagram for sure. Because I think like Instagram kind of like encompasses like everything that I like about other platforms. Like it's got reels now, so like realistically I could get rid of TikTok. It's got, I get my news off Instagram. There's Instagram stories, so that's kind of been taken from Snapchat. And then they've got like DMs. So if I needed to contact people, I could just DM them on Instagram. So feel like that's probably the most like well-rounded.
And since you both said Instagram, if someone was to offer you like $5 million today and you never went on Instagram again, could you do it?
Yeah, I probably would.
I could, but it'd be hard. It'd be really hard.
I feel like I'd find myself like wanting to go back onto it, but I think also that would be like a good thing for me to get off of it.
Yeah, I agree. And then I could actually like with $5 million, I can go travel. I can go experience the world that I'm
You can
seeing
do
on
others, yeah.
Instagram.
Yeah.
You can live the life of an influencer that way and actually live it rather than just see it in pictures. You don't have to take the picture of your little TV anymore, pretend you're like a little mimosa that you're flying somewhere, and you can actually go do it.
Exactly.
But I think that brings us to the end of our podcast here. So thank you to Brooke and to Catherine for being on today's episode. You guys were great. Loved your answers. You provided a lot of insight into just social media and the positives and negatives of it within this industry. So appreciate you guys being on here. Brooklyn, I know it's so weird saying your full name again. I did it again. So I'm going to say Brooke. I know that you are leaving the Beast. You are moving on to a new position with the Guelph Nighthawks. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Ayo, I got it. So maybe just you want to tell us what you're going to be doing there?
Yeah, so it's a similar position to what I have now. It's the position's a manager of creative and digital. So pretty much what I'm going to be doing there is kind of managing their creative services. So everything from graphics, creating graphics, videos, they work with a production studio. So they're really lucky. They have some amazing content that they've gotten from this production studio. So kind of liaisoning with them, liaisoning with the broadcasts, getting stuff ready for their game days. They're also in their off season right now. They're a summer league, so they won't be starting up until next summer. But yeah, it's just kind of creating, like a growing the brand. The big thing with the CEBL, like the Canadian Elite Basketball League, is they're a grassroots program in Canada right now, and they're kind of promoting, homegrown talent in basketball. Like ever since the Raptors won, the NBA title, basketball has been really just, even with their like success prior to that, basketball has been growing rapidly in Canada. So just kind of going off that. And then, I'm excited to be a part of something that's, not 100% established yet, that's really growing. So I have a lot of hope for the future for them.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like a great opportunity and well deserved. I'm so excited for you. We are definitely going to miss you here at the Beast and Cosmos, but I wish you the best of luck. I know you're going to do great. I guess if for students who are looking to get into a job with Beast or Cosmos in terms of our internship program, I said this last week, but I will mention it again. You can reach out to us on the Beast and Cosmos websites. It's bramptonbeast.com, cosmosports.com. You can also reach out to myself at osala at cosmosports.com or Michael Hunter at mbhunter@cosmosports.com. And then on the B side, there's Anthony Fusco. That's Fusco at bramptonbeast.com. So thank you once again to Brooke and Catherine for being on today's episode. Really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for having me.